Welcome to another edition of the Dolphins in Depth podcast, a podcast brought to you by the Miami Herald. We are officially on day 4 of training camp. Interestingly enough, training camp is going in 3-day spurts until we get to the first exhibition game. So we'll have 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. Then we'll do joint practices against the Atlanta Falcons before we take it to the game. But today was the 4th practice, and joining me now is my sports editor, Andre Fernandez, who's also a colleague, a writer. He was out there practice today. Barry Jackson is unavailable. And so, Andre, I have tagged you in. Welcome. How'd you like your first training camp of 2024?
Interesting. I mean, no clear. I mean, the defense kind of won the day, but not by a lot. I mean, they forced the turnovers, things like that. So, but the offense had some moments. So interesting day. And obviously the fans were there today. We finally had a bit of a, the crowd noise, get a little bit of that, chants going during big plays. And obviously Tua with the little drops the Jerry Maguire line and shows the money, which is the big story of these last few days. Him finally getting the contract he wanted. So should be good. Interesting setting the tone for these next few days and see how that goes.
Yeah, for what Andre's referring to is Tua Tagovailoa after he got his new contract from the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dollars, a 4-year extension.
Miami Dollars.
Yeah, Miami Dollars. As Tua says, it's enough money to take care of my kids' kids. Basically, Tua got a 4-year extension worth $121 million in new money, which is an important designation. It is really a 5-year contract. I'll spare you the details. If you want to read the details, I've got stories up breaking up everything in the contract on the Miami Herald. But Tua becomes the 3rd highest paid quarterback in the NFL at $47 million a year in terms of that's what he's going to average over the next 5 years of the deal. That's substantial. That's significant. Say whatever you want about the deal, but that cannot be ignored. Over the first 3 years of the deal, Tua is going to get $150 million, and really 147 of it, no matter what happens. If the only thing that the Dolphins did was they protected themselves against injury. But basically, as long as Tua doesn't suffer a season-ending, career-ending injury this season, the Dolphins are going to be paying him $150 million over the next 3 years. What I did notice about the contract is it's not very cap-friendly at this present moment. But like the Dolphins do all the time, they will take out another credit card to pay down another credit card. And I'm referring to the apocalypse, where basically what they're going to do is they're probably going to change Tua's base salary next year into all of a roster bonus and push down a lot of that debt, but to create cap space. But the deal is a good deal. When you look at the deal on face value, and I know me and Barry addressed it, but then we addressed it before we had the details. When you look at the deal on face value, I don't think there is an area where Tua lost, with the exception of maybe the signing bonus. And that's something where, okay, Steve Ross gave $42 million instead of Jordan Love's $73 million. Oh, well, ultimately he'll get another $25 million next season when they restructure the contract to create cap space. So he'll be walking away with a substantial amount of money in the next 2 years in terms of big fat checks. So I don't think anybody should cry about how much money Tua makes or how much money he's going to make.
Yeah, I don't think he can complain. I mean, honestly, with everything that's happened, I think like you said, he's set. Generations from now are set in his family. And I heard what you said to Barry, and I'm with you on that one. It's a lot. It's a lot considering, look, he should get paid. I get the fact that they needed to pay him. You can't have this lingering, potentially sabotaging your season before it even starts. And granted, the market dictated this too. I mean, when you see the Lions give what they gave to Jared Goff, not to pick on Jared Goff, but come on.
Hey, he took a team to the Super Bowl.
He did, but
he almost took another team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking Mahomes money, but we're not talking light years behind Mahomes' money either. So that's a lot to put on a guy who hasn't won a playoff game yet here, has shown something, but you kind of want to wait and see. Can he do this? Can he win those big games in December? Can he win those big games in January and really earn what they've given him? And that's what remains to be seen. I mean, to me, that's where I'm like, wow, they gave him a lot, but I get it. It's the market. I mean, even you say Jordan Love, but guess what? Jordan Love's won a playoff game already.
He's also only started 20 NFL games.
Right. They had no business going into Dallas and kicking their butts last year the way they did, but they did. And look how he's looking so far.
You know what's interesting? Tua said two things that really stood out to me from the press conference that he had after the practice with his family there, with his son Ace stealing the show, providing iconic pictures for probably that family for generations. Hey, here's the day that Daddy got $212 million in,
and you were there picking at the logo in the background. Yeah.
You're there doing cute stuff. One, he said, a little birdie told him, and honestly, the only birdie could be owner Steve Ross, who he got on the phone with after the deal was finalized. He said a little birdie told him that Mike McDaniel called Steve Ross early Friday morning. And Friday morning is an important day because there's a lot of timeline concerns about, because what people have to understand is Tua did not practice Thursday. He engaged in a complete holdout, basically saying F you to the organization. I'm not practicing. I'm not working. And then the very next day, he did everything, which absolutely, it was, as I called it in a story, it's the most bipolar holdout I've ever seen in NFL history. But he practiced without knowing that he was going to get a contract. Clearly, he probably felt like they were close. But then then the head coach and the GM come into the meeting room, and they come into the quarterback's meeting room, and they basically say, "We got it done." And Tua's like, "We got it done? It's done? It's deal done? I just need to sign." So obviously his agent was working behind the scenes with Brandon Shore, and they were negotiating, and Chris Greer signed off on the deal. But Tua said, according to Tua, what it took was Mike McDaniel calling Steve Ross or communicating with Steve Ross and telling him, we need to get this deal done. It has to be done. Otherwise, it's going to impact everything that we do. Fortunately, Steve Ross has never been a man shy about spending money or making a financial commitment, and he's always been in love and infatuated with Tua. The whole rebuild in 2029 was called Tank for Tua for a very good reason, because they believed that he was a generational talent. And even though he hasn't won a playoff game, even though he hasn't won on the biggest stage, I still make the argument that Tua is a generational talent. You look at what he's done statistically under Mike McDaniel, and you say, pretty impressive. Hell, look at what he did under Brian Flores with no weaponry, no run game, poor offensive line, and still somehow produce winning seasons. And the franchise has had now 4 straight winning seasons, and Tua has been the quarterback behind those 4 straight winning seasons. So the other thing that he said was that really got my attention was that this is about, the next step is about making sure that this team wins that big game. It's, putting the end to Tua can't win a big game, taking them to the playoffs, winning a game, taking them to the Super Bowl. And truthfully, what I've always said about this contract is about giving this team a 3-year window to win a Super Bowl. Right. And I do believe that they have the offense that they need to win a Super Bowl. It's just a matter of whether or not the defense can put it together under Anthony Walker, and if everybody on this old and aged roster can stay healthy. So what were your impressions of Tua and what he said today?
I mean, I think it shows somebody who feels validated after, what he's put in, what he did last season, even the longevity part, not longevity, I'm sorry, the durability part of coming back off the concussions that some people thought he'd never play again, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's someone who realizes
coming back from the hip injury when people thought he never played again. I asked Tua about the moment after when he played his first NFL game after the Jets, where, basically 90 minutes after the game, he's in the middle of the field, just sitting down there, just soaking it all in. Nobody in the stands. He didn't know the media was there, but hey, we were there.
Right. I think it's somebody who realizes what this means forget about not just football, but his life, for his family, everything we talked about, and again, you can read impressions all you want, but it's as far as how this is going to affect him on the field, it's wait and see, because he's always attitude wise, he always looks like he's ready to give his best, to ready for the fight, ready to step up in a big situation. And then we've seen him do that at times and then not do that at times. So
absolutely. More so not do it at times, but yes, right. I get your point.
Yeah.
I will make the argument, and this is the reason why I think he got the contract. This is the reason why I think he's making $47 million. This organization, they see more than we all do. They know his work ethic. They know his commitment. They know how much he stepped up as a leader.
Right.
Outside of injury issues, which they clearly indicated in the contract, when you look at all the language of the contract, you look at all the bonuses in the contract, clearly it's all injury related. Oh, you got to play 50% of the games, right, and you win a playoff game.
They had to.
Right. Yeah. And we'll reward you with another $500,000. Then you win you get to the AFC Championship game, we'll give you another $500,000. Then you get to the Super Bowl, we'll give you another $1 million.
Right.
They get it. They know what it's about.
Yeah.
They know what time it is. The question is, can you build it right in that 3-year window? And that's still to be determined. We are just watching the first week of training camp. I will tell you and share some of my impressions from today and then some of my impressions from the week. I think my first impression from today was it was a red zone day. And for most people who don't know, in red zone day, you're going to get a lot of touchdowns. They start at the 20, they move to the 14, they go to the 8. And then sometimes they even go goal line where they put it at the 2. So there's going to be a lot of balls and a lot of runs that are going to be for touchdowns. Sometimes you'll see a series where it's touchdown, touchdown, touchdown for a quarterback.
Yeah.
The touchdowns aren't the important thing. It's about the execution. I thought the execution was well. I thought it was solid. There was a beautiful pass to or through in the back of the end zone to Braylon Sanders, a very underrated receiver. I definitely think he's an NFL receiver. In the back of the end zone, there was the pass that he threw, to Jalen Waddle on the side, on the right side. There was some runs for touchdown. Tua generally always looks sharp. My standards are every year gets raised for Tua in practice. But what I also saw were turnovers, and the defense produced 4 turnovers on that day, which is why I had to give the victory to the defense. Right now, it's a 3-1 edge to the defense because turnovers, man, that wins games. The old adage is 3 turnovers, and I forget what the percentage is, but you're pretty much losing that football game.
You're screwed pretty much if it's 3 or more at that point. Most of the time, unless something crazy happens. But I don't know. It's early. Tua hasn't. Before the contract was signed, he didn't practice every rep, obviously. But I don't know. I feel like so far I've seen this movie before. Nothing's really, in general, overall, jumped out at me yet. Like, it's going to be this much better on either side of the ball. In fact, if anything, I maybe a few more concerns here and there with certain things.
I think at this point in the year, I have way more concerns about this roster than I did at this point last year for this team. I mean, when you look at the laundry list of people who are out or on maintenance program or in bubble wrap, or they have these days off in the first week of practice, you clearly know Mike McDaniel realizes he's got a fragile roster. Right. And then it doesn't help things when today Cam Smith goes down, gets walked off by trainers. We don't know how serious it is, but if you remember at the end of the first week last year, Jalen Ramsey goes down, gets walked off by trainers. We don't see him till October again. Right. Now, clearly, I'm not comparing Cam Smith to Jalen Ramsey. I haven't seen Cam Smith make a play in practice yet. I've also have not seen him get embarrassed yet, which is a starting point for quarterbacks.
Right.
Yeah, to give you comparison's sake, the past 3 seasons, Noah Igbenogany, I noticed him a lot. I noticed him a lot in practice for 3 years. You notice him a lot. I don't notice Cam Smith, but I certainly don't see him making plays. Right. And also Tua has not worked. So let's be real. That's
why I think you can't take too much from these last few practices because of that. But now, starting now, you do, because now here we go. full speed. You know,
not even just full speed, but
not full speed, but him being there.
Yeah, I haven't seen Anthony Weaver blitz. I don't see a blitz day.
True.
I don't see them working on blitz packages. And yes, maybe that'll come when the pads come on. But I'm also concerned about the offensive line. I'm also concerned about defensive line. I'm also concerned about injuries. I thought cornerback was one of the thinnest units on the team. And now if Cam Smith is down, okay, who steps up as the third cornerback on this team outside of Cater Cole, who was
we've seen the wheels fall off injury wise on this team down the stretch of the season already with twice, and even more last year, and that's a concern. I mean, you got two of your most key players coming off major injuries in Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. I mean, yes, they're working their way back, but how durable are they going to be this year? We don't know. You have a lot of veterans that they've brought in.
Have battled injuries throughout their career.
Right. And they have veterans that have come in. Are they going to be the same? Like you mentioned before, they counted on Shaq Barrett being one of those guys, and now he retired. But, they brought in Ogba. Is he still Emmanuel Ogba from before, the first time he was here?
The Brian Flores version of Emmanuel. Actually, You know what? Let me say this about Emmanuel, who I have a level of respect for from what he did in the Brian Flores era. I know he didn't fit in the Vic Fangio scheme. But even now, I'm seeing Emmanuel Ogba. He's not ever going to look good dropping back into coverage. He's a big man. He doesn't move well going backwards. Okay, then don't ask him to go backwards. But I've seen him be more impactful the past 4 practices, and he was impactful again today, than I've seen him be impactful probably all of last camp. Now, in fairness to Ogba, he did produce 5.5 sacks, interception, a forced fumble, in like 212 snaps on defense last year, which is a ridiculous productivity rate. So let's not act like he's a scrub, but he's also going to be needed, and he's delivering right now in this defense. I'm very curious to see what happens when they start blitzing and they start adding a couple more wrinkles to it. But he's also not the only edge that needs to be addressed. Today was a day where you saw Chop Robinson be more noticeable. The one thing that I think Dolphin fans, and I had this exchange on Twitter, and I want to address it here on the podcast because I have a podcast. Dolphin fans are every day, it's the same question. How's Chop Robinson doing? Is he going to be a superstar? How's Chop Robinson doing? And my response is always calm down, be patient. And the point I'm trying to make is rookies rarely ever, first-year players, not just rookies, rarely ever flash in the early first weeks of training camp.
Right.
When rookies start to flash is right after that first exhibition game, when they played in an NFL game. They're 3 weeks into camp and 2-3 months into an NFL career.
Right, when they get a taste.
They get a taste and they're like, oh, this is not too big for me. Oh, these NFL players, they're just a little bit better than I played against, but I can play on this level. And you see a light bulb go on. And that's when they start to thrive. Chop Robinson is very quick get off, very fast. He's off, snap of the fingers, he's off. He's off, rushing. Now, the problem is with the offensive tackles, if they've got good hands, all they're doing is using his speed against him and pushing him out of the play.
Right.
Okay? You've got to have you can't just rely on speed in the NFL. You got to have a counter move, you got to have a swim, you got to cut inside. Where he's best is when he's used as an inside blitzer in the A gap, the B gap, and he just shoots the gap between the tackle and the guard, or between the guard and the center, and then it's like, oh God, there's this guy in my face, and the quarterback has to rush the ball. I am more concerned with his edge setting. Man, I shouldn't see Tanner Connor driving you 5 yards off the ball.
No,
even when you don't have pads. And that's pretty much a consistent thing. And so as long as this happens, you're not a first or second down player. Jalen Phillips had the same issues his rookie season. And for the first half of the year, he didn't play on first or second down.
Well, that's why I didn't expect that play one immediately be impactful guy on first and second down. I mean, I don't know. Am I the only one that didn't think that would happen right away, immediately, right out of the chute? No, I thought there's going to be some developmental.
We need him. He has no choice.
Yeah, I never thought it would be like, I mean, even in the regular season, let's say this was already against the Jaguars. I don't expect him right away to be that impactful. He will be down the road, but there's going to be a developmental period for everything you're saying with him. But to me, this is the. I know offense is sexier to talk about, quarterbacks always, but this storyline with their defense, and not only the defense, but the new scheme with Weaver and how it's going to work or not work and all that. What do you think? I mean, I think that's one of the most fascinating storylines, and maybe not. It's talked about, but maybe not enough as it should be.
Well,
you don't think it's talked about at all. I think it's rare. It's overshadowed for sure.
Yeah,
but
now that we have the Tua contract out the way, because I don't know how many days I've been here and I've written the Tua contract. 4 days? Whether he's going to get it, if he's holding out or no, he's not practicing today. Yeah, okay, that's out of the way. The number one storyline for this team is, can this defense pick up where Vic Fangio left it off?
Right. And
they've got more pieces. Yeah, you don't have Christian Wilkins, you don't have Xavier Howard, you don't have Jerome Baker, but you've got comparable replacements in Kendall Fuller and Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker and Jordan Poyer and Calais Campbell. The question is, but that's the thing. I haven't seen much. Right now, I'm looking at a turkey meatloaf and a plate of mashed potatoes. There's no gravy there. There's no vegetables.
Well, you said pick up where they left off. I mean, truthfully, just be better than there was. Because
I thought they were
better than last year.
They
were, but toward the end, I mean, is this going to be one of the defenses that can?
They lost,
even though the pieces were falling off.
Yeah, they lost. They lost their arms, their legs, they lost everything on defense.
But again, that's when you make these roster moves, you're inviting a lot of risk when it comes to injuries. I mean,
but that's how business has to get done when you're paying a quarterback $47 million a season. This is going to have to be the new way of life. Either you're going to do what you're doing now, which is sign aged, mature veterans for 1 year, $2 million, or you're going to have to draft well. And, they need like 5 top 50 picks to draft well. Right. That's just the history of this franchise. No shade. He as I say, Chris Greer's undrafted players have just as much of an opportunity to play well as his first and second round picks.
Historically, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how this team is built, the dynamics, how this defense. I can't tell you anything about what this defense looks like right now. I just don't. I'm not seeing any sprinkles. There's no nuts. There's no hot fudge. All you got is vanilla ice cream right now. Maybe they throw some sprinkles and some nuts and some fudge and a little crumbled up Oreos when Tua's out there. But I can tell you right now, watching Mike White and Skylar Thompson for a week, they can't handle any sprinkles.
I don't think Cold Stone or Baskin Robbins is going to unleash the full menu till September 8th. I don't think we're going to see much. We're going to see maybe little bits.
You know what? When you see it in the scrimmage practices where they're not going to be able to put things on film. And this is what people don't realize.
Right. But little bits. Yeah.
Yeah. Scrimmage practices are probably more revealing than the exhibition season because they're going to run everything vanilla in the exhibition season. In scrimmage practices, only the other team sees this stuff. And so, you generally try to make sure I don't even think they're playing Atlanta this season. You could do whatever you want to do against Atlanta, and they're going to do the same thing. Right. These two coaches, they know each other. They're going to protect each other. Yeah. And you're going to
Tampa too, right? Tampa too, right? I don't think they don't have the Bucs in the regular season.
Yeah. Tampa, yeah. So that's when Washington, I don't think, is on their schedule as well either. So this is when, and you don't put it on film. Like the entire NFL is going to have everything on film. So those joint practices, man, if you could attend it, it's going to be some fireworks, in my opinion.
Right.
And it's going to be more revealing to me than what we're going to see in the exhibition season. And then I'm going to get to see the starters. But, in the exhibition season, you might see Tua play one series, maybe 2 per game. I'm going to see him probably take about 40 snaps against all those teams in the joint practices. But, and the same thing with the defense. So we'll see what's coming and what's down the pipeline. Let me tell you some of the other plays from practice that really stood out just for those who come here for the daily practice report, which we've got the stock report up now on the Miami Herald. There were 4 turnovers, I told you. Rookie edge rusher Grayson Murphy, who I actually like. I think, right now, Quentin Bell is the hottest edge rusher outside of Emmanuel Ogbah. But in terms of names you don't know, Quentin Bell, the practice squad player, I think he's the guy that's really pushing for playing time, if not starting role. Then you've got second-year Ethan Bonner, who, with Cam Smith going down, Ethan's going to have an elevated opportunity. Ethan Bonner, for record, is in the conversation for the fastest man on the team. He records the fastest mile per hour last year. He records one of the fastest mile per hour last year. That's when Tyreek Hill says he might be the only one that's coming for my throne because Ethan practices fast. And this year, we asked Anthony Schwartz, another fast wide receiver, who are the fastest guys on the team? And the first name that he mentioned is Ethan Bonner. And players keep track of who runs the fast. Every day there's a reporter who runs the fastest miles per hour speed in practice. So clearly Tyreek is not running super fast in practice. No offense.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah. And he didn't practice today. And Tyreek is on a maintenance program. And Tyreek is not going to work every day.
He should be.
Friday, he basically skipped the first 50 minutes of practice. I don't know what he's doing inside the building, but then shows up 7-on-7 and everybody's been out there in the heat and sweating and doing whatever. And he shows up 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 catches a 70-yard bomb while Jalen Ramsey's been out there for like 50 minutes, worked up a nice lather.
Right. Well, what do you think? Speaking of that, and talking about receivers, your hunch, when do we see Odell finally?
Scrimmage week.
Scrimmage week, okay.
Maybe he shows up next week. I don't think so. Odell is here. Odell is in the Teron Armstead plan where he'll be encased in bubble wrap until it's time to get him ready condition-wise for the regular season. I don't know what the medical issue is, and that we're actually told by Miami Media Relation, Odell wants to talk. So he will talk before he comes off the PUP, which does not happen. He's going to clarify up all what's going on. I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect there's maybe knee swelling. I'm speculating. And if a player is having knee swelling, the last thing you want to do when he's had knee issues is put him on the field in practices and moments that don't matter.
Well, that's why I was going to guess maybe a little even later than you said. I mean, maybe toward the end of the preseason when we get to the third game, maybe
probably
to kind of start amping up a bit.
Yeah, I've asked Teron Armstead how much work does he think he needs to get ready for a season, and that would happen to be the day he suffered the foot injury in a joint practice against Houston. And then I was just like, I feel all guilty about that. And he basically said, to paraphrase it, about 3 weeks. I need 3 weeks to get ready for the season. 1 week of doing individuals, 2 weeks of limited participation, and then a full go day. What Mike McDaniels has said is there will be days where Teron works, and there will be days where he does not work, and there will be days where he does half a day's work. And truthfully speaking, we've seen that right now with Raheem Mostert. We've seen that with Tyreek Hill. We've seen that with Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer didn't work today. This is the second of 4 days where he didn't work, and I'm good with it. When you've got an aged roster, and
you have to. You can't burn these guys out in July. You have to.
Let me ask you a question, Andre. Does Tyreek Hill need to do individual workouts?
No.
Individual position drills?
No. That's automatic. He steps on the field, flips the switch, go. I mean,
I
know you don't want to push it that long. You need your reps, but he could be limited up until September 8th, and it's fine.
Yeah. So
we know what you have with him.
You know what you have in Teron Armstead.
What you have in Teron Armstead. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the one concern and statement, and it'll probably get me in trouble, I had about Jordan Poyer when I watched him in OTAs working day after day. I looked at him and was just like, I don't think this guy's got the legs anymore to play, safety position. And Mike McDaniels has rested him 2 out of 4 days. Okay. But then when you're a 30-something-year-old veteran, I'm sorry, this is what you need. So, Mike McDaniel runs Country Club Miami Gardens, but if this helps the team perform better in December and January, who cares?
But has it
Now,
been working because guys have been
no, he
dropping
just
like
got here.
flies? Oh,
He
right.
He
But
just started doing it.
with Odell, though, how much does he need to work out before the season starts to determine if he's still the Odell you hope he is and what he can bring to this offense?
You know what? And I'm glad you asked me that question, Andre, because with this batch and group of receivers, I'm okay with riding Braxton Berrios for a week or 2 or 3 while Odell gets himself up to speed. Mike McDaniel says it's the classwork that's important right now, learning the offense. But I do wonder about the chemistry that he has with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua said, I'm a guy who needs my reps. So it'll be important to get out there and get working. When will that happen? I have absolutely no idea. But I'm also not concerned, because if you ask the Dolphin fan what's their number one concern about this team, it's going to be generally how will they perform in December and January when things matter. And this approach that they're taking right now with their 30-year-olds is about ensuring that they have the legs under them late down the season and in stretches of the season where it's critical moments.
Yeah.
So
and bringing it all full circle. That what will they do in December, January goes right back to the $212 million man.
Yeah, definitely.
How will he perform? So
I'm happy that he got his extension. As I've said in a previous podcast, it was a lot more than I thought the Dolphins would be willing to give him. I earmarked him at in real money, $44-45 million season. They paid him 47. They guaranteed him basically 150 over the first 3 years of the deal, which means he's going to get $50 million a season. Any way you slice it, this was a win for Tua Tagovailoa and his family, and he's worked hard enough, and he deserves that. And we'll figure out how the cap works for the next 3 years while we try to build a title contender. On that note, this has been another edition of the Miami Herald's Dolphins In-Depth podcast. We will be back Monday to recap the 5th day of training camp. Thank you, Andre, for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow.